Did you know that electric cars were already running in the early 1900s, but that the oil industry pushed for combustion engines because the auto part market was deemed way more lucrative? Did you know that bioplastics were also available in the early 1900s, but were shunned because petroleum-based plastic was cheaper? What the industry sells today as bioplastic is merely conventional plastic treated with harmful chemicals. Those chemicals also harm the environment. This industrial plastic is very different from bioplastic made from starch, vinegar and glycerin, for example, as shown in this video, should you be interested in making your own bioplastic. The time of endorsing experts following the stock market has run its course, and if the experts really knew, they would rightfully oppose sun dimming CO2 as a Wall Street commodity and tree planting monoculture to start with. But they will not, because the academic consensus is siding with corporations. If you run a quick search, you will see that many countries have pledged planting millions of trees or have done so already. We do not have any stats to share with you about which tree species are being planted, but we are certain that such endeavor do not respect the species ratio that nature needs to thrive. We are setting ourselves up for another ecocide. A massive depletion of our soils across the globe. It is time to think of nature in holistic terms. Natural laws are supreme, and climate alarmism is too often completely ignoring them. The Global Forest Coalition states, bioenergy is a false solution. Replacing coal with forest for burning will not only lead to more emission, but increased planting of energy crops and trees, marginalizing communities and destroying their livelihood. We must degrow the economy. Targeting degrowth also targets the environment, and if the right measures are taken, that will reduce pollution and any climate concerns. We cannot put climate change in the first position, nor arc from there, because the latter is not a cause, but a consequence. Neither can we address any problem from a consequence, because doing so enables Wall Street moneymakers to get their ways. Therefore, any organization that does not advocate for degrowth support capitalist solutions, directly or not. In this 2-hour-plus presentation at 37 minutes, Peter Joseph's conservative assessment based on quite mainstream data outlines that food abundance for 34 trillion people on Earth could be achieved using vertical farming globally. Yes, 34 trillion. We can no longer support blindly any sides, explains Charles Eisenstein, philosopher and author of Sacred Economics.
It really seems to someone on the other side that anyone who disagrees with them, anyone on the other side, is just an idiot. Like, how can you even question it when the evidence is so overwhelming, when 97% of the scientists believe in it? Haven't you seen the hockey stick graph? There's been, dozens of different hockey stick graphs, all pretty much saying the same thing. How could you possibly? You must be a denier. So they're like, each side just seems to be totally deluded to the other. And neither side, I find, is really going deeply into the best arguments of their opponents. It's quite the opposite. They take the weakest arguments of their opponents and set up a straw man and demolish that and feel really good about that because they've made the other side look bad, which is a tactic of war, of information war. When a narrative is itself a weapon, you can't let any data in that will dilute your narrative.
There is a third option to avoid the trap of this extremely divisive rhetoric. Let's degrow the economy. And actually, that is the only choice that is really left. The system change will not come from the current consensuses. Additionally, most renewables require to process materials that have often huge carbon footprints. Wind turbines, solar panels, and battery comes to mind. What is needed is to decrease our consumption as soon as possible. Throwing more money at the problem will not help, because speculation, overproduction, and overconsumerism are the core issues.
There is this debate going on within the Democratic Party as it tries to decide who to run against Donald Trump about whether or not to have a response to climate change that is very bold, that spends a lot of money to do these transformations, and this counter response, which is it's too much, it's too big, it's too expensive. Do you have anything to add to these debates about just, in particular, the idea that it's kind of too expensive to deal with climate change?
I mean, the money is there. If we can save the banks, then we can save the world. I mean,
where greed is green, managing emissions is one of the fastest growing segments in financial services, and companies are scrambling for talent. Their goal, a slice of the market now worth about 30 billion, but which could grow to 1 trillion within the next decade. Any organization that does not advocate for degrowing the economy supports capitalist solution, directly or not. To put it simply, we live in a system teaching that taking more out, that's what one puts in, is how things must be done. So as long as that very consensus isn't put to rest, any solution will remain futile and spread more divisive narratives and opinions. This column also revealed a few interesting tidbits in favor of degrowing the economy. Some people have understood for centuries that a society built on extraction and accumulation would burn the whole planet alive. The belief that any of this half-hearted tinkering will lead to drastic cut in CO2 emission in the future is plain self-deceit. Economic output, as we understand it, they say, must shrink. However, the amount of fossil fuels needed to power the mines, manufacturing, infrastructure, and maintenance of renewables makes the goal of transitioning to clean energy completely meaningless, writes Kim Hill in a Medium.com article. Emission zero, wind turbines, hydroelectric dams, biofuels, solar panels, energy efficiency projects, and carbon capture are commonly traded carbon offsets. None of these actually reduce carbon emissions in practice and are themselves contributing to greenhouse gas emissions, so making the problem worse. Electronic waste is too beyond staggering, not to mention the human cost linked to such a deficient global recycling industry.